Welcome back to Glitch Frequency. Today we talk about Fukuda Kazuko, Japan's most infamous plastic surgery fugitive.
We're going back to 1982 to dismantle a 15-year ultimate manhunt hidden behind dozens of altered faces and 20 aliases.
So we are digging into just a massive stack of Japanese sources for this deep dive today. We've got investigative articles, historical documentaries, broadcast specials, the works.
Right, and our mission here isn't just to, recite a timeline.
Exactly. We really want to understand the actual mechanics of an impossible escape. Like, how does someone successfully erase their physical identity and evade this highly motivated nationwide dragnet for a decade and a half?
And the psychological toll of that, too.
Yeah, completely. The immense, terrifying psychological toll of constantly destroying who you are just to survive.
I mean, I want you to think about this for a second. Have you ever had that fleeting, almost intrusive thought of just walking away from your life?
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Just dropping everything, moving somewhere new, and starting completely over as a blank slate. It sounds, I don't know, liberating in a movie.
But the reality is much darker.
Exactly. What if doing that meant you could never look in a mirror and recognize your own face again? What if the cost of that freedom was watching your own flesh slowly erode?
That is the exact nightmare we're unpacking today. And to really understand the mechanics of this escape, we have to start with the catalyst that set it all in motion.
Back in 1982.
Right. We are in Matsuyama, a city in Ehime Prefecture. The date is August 19th, 1982. Kazuko's 34 years old. She's working as a hostess in a high-end club, but her personal life is it's collapsing.
He's in a lot of debt, right?
Yeah, drowning in about 2 million yen of debt, living drastically beyond her means. And she sets her sights on her colleague, the #1 hostess at their club, who Kazuko knows is doing very well financially.
And the sources are very clear that this was not some, heat-of-the-moment crime of passion. It is chillingly calculated.
Oh, absolutely.
They have a financial dispute, and Kazuko actually strangles this woman. But it's the immediate aftermath that really shows us what kind of operator we are dealing with.
Yeah.
She doesn't panic and run.
No, she calmly forces her own husband to help her move the body.
Which is insane. They first stash it on the landing of a fire escape stairwell, which is incredibly brazen, before eventually driving it out to the mountains to bury it.
And while the husband is dealing with that grim reality, Kazuko is actively looting the dead woman's apartment.
Wow.
Yeah, she grabs around 600,000 yen in cash, packs up her luxury clothes. She is, gathering resources.
But I'm trying to make sense of the sheer intensity of her flight. People commit terrible crimes and run, but Kazuko's evasion borders on the absolute fanatical. Why was she so desperate?
Well, you have to look at the trauma that was driving her. The sources provide this crucial piece of psychological context. When Kazuko was 18, she served time for a robbery at Matsuyama prison.
And that was a really dark period for that facility.
It was. It was a time of intense systemic corruption. Local gangs were literally bribing the guards to gain access to female inmates.
Mm-hmm.
During her stint there, she was repeatedly assaulted.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. So her absolute refusal to be captured later in life isn't just a standard criminal's desire to avoid a jail cell.
It's a profound, paralyzing phobia. It's a trauma response. The engine driving this entire 15-year flight is the absolute visceral terror of being put back in a cage where she has zero control over her own body.
That makes so much sense.
Right. And that engine revs into overdrive just days after the murder. The victim's family realizes she's missing. The police start digging. They trace a rental truck back to Kazuko's relatives. The walls are closing in fast.
And then the police actually call Kazuko's house.
Yes. They call to ask her some questions.
This is one of those moments that feels like it's straight out of a thriller. The police are on the phone, Kazuko answers, and instantly realizes the danger.
Her intuition is crazy.
Right. Without missing a beat, she perfectly mimics the voice of her own young daughter. She plays the role of a child, telling the police her mother isn't home, completely deceiving the officers.
It's terrifyingly quick thinking.
And then she hangs up the phone, completely aware that the clock has just run out. She literally flees her home wearing her slippers. Yep, walks out the door, carrying that 600,000 yen she looted, just 2 hours before the police raid her house.
A 2-hour margin. If she hesitates to pack a bag, if she takes the time to, put on real shoes, she is caught in 1982.
But she doesn't just run to the next town over to lay low. She takes a ferry to Honshu, the main island of Japan, and heads straight into the sheer density of Tokyo.
And this is where she executes a maneuver that completely breaks the investigation. She immediately walks into a clinic and undergoes double eyelid and nose surgeries.
We really need to pause on this and explain how effective this was because, we look at this through a modern lens where altering your face wouldn't save you from a digital footprint or GPS tracking or Koseki, the Japanese family registry system.
Exactly.
But in 1982, how did police actually track people?
Well, it was almost entirely analog and visual. The police methodology of the early 1980s relied heavily on eyewitness sketches and static photographs.
So they're just passing around pictures?
Right. When a suspect went on the run, the police would fax those images to local stations across the country, who would then print them on wanted posters. And think about a fax machine in 1982.
Oh, grainy.
Extremely grainy, high contrast, black and white. It relied entirely on primary facial markers, the shape of the eyes, the bridge of the nose, the silhouette of the jaw.
So by surgically altering her eyelids and the bridge of her nose, she isn't just making herself look a little prettier, she is fundamentally altering the shadow profile of her face.
She is breaking the manual pattern recognition system the police are completely dependent on.
Yeah. I mean, in today's world, we think about wiping our digital footprint to disappear. We delete our social media, we toss our smartphones into a river, we use burner accounts.
But doing this physically in 1982, she didn't just wipe the hard drive, she destroyed the hardware.
That's a great way to put it.
She took a scalpel to her own identity because she knew the police were looking for a specific arrangement of physical features that simply did not exist anymore.
And armed with this new face, she needs stability. By September 1982, she arrives in Kanazawa, in Ishikawa Prefecture. This era is essentially the absolute peak of her escape. She adopts the alias Onodera Shin.
Which brings up a really crucial question about how identity functioned back then. Like, how do you just adopt a name in Japan without a koseki, the family registry? Every legal action requires that documentation.
You bypass the formal systems entirely. You dive into the cash-based shadow economy.
The nightlife.
Exactly. She uses her elite skills from her previous life to become the top lounge hostess in Kanazawa. In the nightlife industry of the 1980s bubble economy, cash was king, and background checks were virtually non-existent.
It was just built on assumed names and constructed personas.
Yes. And she crafts this incredibly elaborate backstory. She plays the role of a battered runaway wife from a wealthy family in Kyoto.
That's brilliant.
It really is, because it explains why she has no formal documents, why she's secretive, and why she needs to be paid in cash. It weaponizes people's empathy.
And it works perfectly. She completely wins the sympathy of this wealthy, traditional Japanese sweet shop owner.
She moves in with him. But because she doesn't have a koseki, they can't legally marry. So she becomes his common-law wife.
But she's not just hiding in the back room, right?
No, not at all. What's fascinating here, she hides in plain sight. She essentially takes over the daily operations of his business. She uses her brilliant customer service skills, those same skills that made her a top-tier hostess, to actually double the sweet shop's revenue. She is so effective that they are able to renovate the building. She becomes this beloved, indispensable local figure in the neighborhood.
Let's unpack this for a second. She has mathematically beaten the system. She has a perfect cover. She's respected in the community. She's financially secure again. The police are looking for a ghost with an old face, and she's totally safe.
Right.
But then, in 1986, she makes an incredibly audacious, almost self-destructive move. Driven by a mother's longing, she secretly arranges for her real biological son to come live with them in Ishikawa.
Wait, how did she explain him to the new husband?
She lies and tells him the boy is simply her nephew.
I'm trying to make sense of this. She is a hyper-rational survivor who will literally slice up her own face to stay ahead of the cops. She is counting cards perfectly. She is beating the house. But then she pushes all her chips to the center of the table just to have her son near her. Why risk a perfect 5.5-year cover for this?
Because the psychological isolation was finally outweighing her fear of prison.
That makes sense.
You have to imagine the profound loneliness of being an alias. Every conversation is a lie. Every affectionate moment with her new husband is built on a fabricated history. Bringing her son into the picture was her desperate attempt to anchor herself to something real.
To have at least one person who actually knew who she was.
Exactly. But it's a massive gamble, and in 1988, the house finally wins. Her son needs to use his driver's license for something, And right there on the card is an address in Matsuyama, the exact city where the infamous fugitive Kazuko Fukuda is from.
Oh, no.
The sweet shop owner's relatives, who had already been harboring some suspicions about this mysterious woman who refused to formally marry into the family, they put two and two together. They tip off the police.
And she just knows, right? Her radar goes off.
It's uncanny. The police are mobilized and physically en route to the sweet shop. At that exact moment, Kazuko is outside helping the neighborhood prepare for a local funeral. She senses something is wrong. The atmosphere shifts, or maybe she notices a strange car.
And her phobia takes over.
Completely. Overriding everything else, she abandons all her belongings. The wealth, the business, the son. She risked everything for her. She abandons it all, and she simply vanishes into the rainy night on a stolen bicycle.
That single moment destroys her trust in stability. The 5 years in Kanazawa were a luxury she realizes she can never afford again. And this kicks off a grueling, frantic period of drifting from 1988 to 1996.
Yeah, she establishes an iron law for survival, the 3-month rule.
She deduces that putting down roots is a trap. 3 months is roughly the threshold of intimacy. It's the amount of time it takes for employers to start asking for permanent tax documents or for new friends to start asking deeper questions about your past.
She just keeps moving.
Never stays in one location for more than 90 days.
The logistics of this are staggering. The sources show she moves across 15 different prefectures using over 20 distinct aliases.
Constantly adapting.
Yeah. In Nagoya, she becomes Kuramoto Iku and gets a job as a maid in a love hotel, which is highly strategic because maids in love hotels are basically designed to be invisible. But even there, a coworker spots her from a wanted poster, so she bolts again.
She flees to Kyoto, working at an inn under the name Nakamura Yuriko. And this is where she pulls a brilliant countermove. Domestic news is blanketing the country with her face, right? So she pivots to an environment where domestic news doesn't exist. The Western tourist bubble.
Which is incredibly smart.
She actually teaches herself English so she can specifically serve foreign tourists who have absolutely no idea what a Japanese wanted poster looks like.
It's highly adaptive, but the police are relentlessly ramping up the pressure. They launch a historic nationwide TV campaign. And they don't just use her photo, they broadcast the recorded audio of her voice from that fateful phone call where she mimicked her daughter.
Because voices don't change like faces do.
Right. They know her face might change, but the underlying cadence of her voice is much harder to hide.
So to stay ahead of those nationwide broadcasts and the ubiquitous wanted posters, she has to undergo constant facial touch-ups.
And this brings us to one of the most horrific details from the sources. We have to talk about the physical reality of what she was doing to her own body.
The cosmetic technology of the 1980s was nowhere near what it is today. The silicone implants used to alter her facial structure weren't perfectly pure or biologically seamless. Over time, her body begins to aggressively reject the foreign materials.
God, that sounds awful.
It was. Her face starts suffering from deep, painful deformities as the implants shift and the tissue reacts.
I want you to really picture the absolute horror of this existence. You are living out of suitcases, looking over your shoulder every single day. Your body is screaming in pain, rejecting the very silicone keeping you free.
It's unimaginable.
You look in the mirror, see the facial deformities, and you know you have to go back to a clandestine surgeon to literally slice away whatever is left of your original features. She is quite literally eroding her own flesh. You have to wonder, at what point does the original Fukuda Kazuko cease to exist?
Psychologically, she was heavily fragmenting. She was becoming a ghost haunting her own life. And that sheer bone-deep exhaustion brings us to 1996.
The home stretch.
Yeah. The statute of limitations for murder in Japan at that time was 15 years. It was about to expire in less than a year. If she can just endure the paranoia for a few more months, the clock runs out and she is legally untouchable.
So she moves to Fukui.
Under the name Nakamura Reiko. But despite her ironclad 3-month rule, despite all the paranoia, she starts slipping. She becomes a regular at a local Odin shop.
And she falls right back into her old hostess habits, doesn't she?
She does. She charms the room, buys drinks for the regulars, loves singing karaoke. Her absolute favorite song to sing was the classic Tsugaru Kaikyu Fuyu Geishiki.
But the landscape around her has drastically changed. The victim's family and the police have rallied, and there is now a massive nationwide bounty of 5 million yen on her head.
And fascinatingly, a significant portion of that bounty was actually contributed by the original plastic surgeon in Tokyo, who altered her face back in 1982.
Wait, really?
Yes. He was deeply driven by a sense of guilt for inadvertently facilitating her evasion.
Wow. Well, the net finally closes in this Odin shop. One night, a television broadcast comes on showing her wanted poster and playing the audio of her voice.
And this is where she makes her fatal mistake.
Watching this broadcast of herself, surrounded by the shop regulars, she jokingly tells the owner, "Look, this person looks just like me."
It's an unbelievable moment. And I have to ask, was that joke just pure, unadulterated arrogance from someone who had beaten the system for 14 years? Or was it a subconscious cry for help?
It's hard to say for sure.
When you've been running and slicing up your own face for a decade and a half, does the fear of a prison cell eventually get overshadowed by the sheer exhaustion of hiding? Did she, on some level, actually want the chase to end?
It's one of the most profound questions of her entire run. The sources strongly suggest she was deeply conflicted. She wanted freedom, but she was entirely trapped in a psychological prison of her own making.
And that joke didn't go unnoticed.
No. Her distinct Ehime accent, which she could never fully mask despite her shifting personas, combined with that brazen joke, finally triggers the Odin shop owner's suspicion.
But the owner doesn't confront her. She plays it perfectly cool. She quietly contacts the police and then secretly collects Kazuko's fingerprints.
So smart.
She wipes down a beer bottle Kazuko drank from and meticulously secures the karaoke maracas Kazuko was using to entertain the room that night. She hands them over to the detectives.
The police run the prints against the records from her teenage arrest. It's a perfect match. On July 29th, 1997, Kazuko walks out of that Odin shop and is instantly swarmed by a massive police presence.
The 14-year, 344-day run is over.
She was caught with exactly 21 days left before the statute of limitations would have expired.
21 days.
21 days from getting away with murder forever. The margin is just staggering. So what happens after the adrenaline fades and she is finally placed in the one environment she spent 15 years terrified of?
Well, in prison, Kazuko wrote a series of letters. And despite the extravagant, shape-shifting, high-stakes life she led on the run, she described her existence as being filled with an endless, unbearable emptiness.
She spent 15 years systematically destroying Fukuda Kazuko, only to realize that the void left behind was infinitely worse than the identity she fled.
Her tragic final wish, written from her cell, was devastatingly simple. I want to change back to Fukuda Kazuko.
That is so bleak.
She died in prison of a brain hemorrhage in 2005 at the age of 57.
But her legacy didn't die with her, did it? She permanently altered Japanese society. The sheer public shock and outrage over her 15-year game of cat and mouse forced a massive legal reckoning.
Exactly. Her evasion proved to the Japanese justice system that a modern criminal capable of surgically altering their appearance and rapidly crossing prefectural lines could easily outpace a traditional legal clock designed for a slower era.
The 15-year limit wasn't enough.
Right. In 2010, directly influenced by the outrage of her near escape, Japan amended its penal code, completely abolishing the statute of limitations for murder.
She reshaped her face, and in doing so, she ultimately reshaped the law itself. It brings us back to that question of the mirror.
Yeah. When you erase every physical and digital trace of yourself, you don't actually become someone new. You just become a ghost haunting the edges of your own life.
Exactly.
The 1997 dragnet is over, but the shock remains, permanently inked into law. When enforcement becomes a siege, the fire never truly stops burning.
The chilling part isn't that she killed, but that she seamlessly blended into our daily routines using 20 names and endless altered faces.
When you lock eyes with strangers on the street tonight, can you truly be certain that the face in front of you is the flesh they were born with? Frequency tuning ends here. See you next episode.